Most people think being not smart is obvious. Bad decisions, clear mistakes, something you can point to. But what if it's not that loud? What if it shows up in small, everyday moments? How you react, how quickly something makes sense, how certain you feel. Because sometimes the problem isn't what you know, it's how your mind fills in the gaps without you noticing. And the hardest part? From the inside, it just feels normal. So here are 5 subtle signs, not loud, not obvious, but patterns in the way you think that quietly reveal more than you might expect. Sign 1. You rarely question what you hear. Have you ever noticed how easily we accept things when they sound right the first time? Someone says something confident, it feels logical, and without realizing it, you move on. No pause, no second thought. What if I told you the problem isn't misinformation, but how rarely we question it? I've caught myself doing this more than I'd like to admit, hearing something that fit just enough and never checking if it was actually true. Because questioning takes effort, it slows things down. Have you ever wondered how many things you believe simply because they felt correct? And over time, that feeling starts to replace actual understanding, quietly shaping how you see everything. Sign 2. You only accept ideas that feel comfortable. At first, it doesn't feel like bias. It just feels like preference. You hear an idea, and something in you leans toward it or pulls away. Not based on logic, but on how familiar it feels. What if the real filter isn't truth, but comfort? I've noticed this in myself, returning to the same types of opinions, the same perspectives, the same conclusions. Not because they're always right, but because they're easier to accept. Discomfort, on the other hand, feels like a signal to reject. Can you imagine how much of your thinking is shaped by what you quietly avoid? And over time, that doesn't just limit what you believe, it limits what you're willing to understand. Sign 3. You argue to protect your ego, not find truth. Some conversations aren't really conversations. They're quiet competitions about who's right, who sounds smarter, who wins. You respond quickly, you defend your point, and even while the other person is speaking, you're already preparing your next argument. What if the goal was never understanding, but protecting how you appear? I've seen this happen and caught myself doing it too. The moment something challenges your view, it doesn't feel like information. It feels like a threat. So you push back, not to explore, but to hold your ground. Can you guess what disappears the moment ego takes over? Curiosity fades, listening stops, and the conversation turns into something else entirely. Sign 4. You judge ideas based on who said them. Sometimes the idea isn't what gets rejected first, it's the person behind it. An opinion comes up, and before you've even processed it, your mind has already made a decision, not based on reasoning, but on your impression of the speaker. It's subtle, but it shifts your attention away from what's being said to who's saying it. I've caught myself doing this, dismissing something too quickly, and then later realizing I never really gave it a fair look. Respect can bias you just as much as dislike. Can you imagine how often judgment happens before understanding even begins? And over time, that changes how you think, not toward accuracy, but toward familiarity. Sign 5. You keep learning, but nothing actually changes. It can feel like progress. Reading more, watching more, understanding more, you start to recognize patterns, ideas, even explain things clearly. And for a moment, it feels like you've moved forward. But understanding something isn't the same as changing because of it. I've been there, thinking I had figured something out, only to realize later nothing in my behavior actually shifted. Because real change is slower, less satisfying. It requires action, not just clarity. What if the reason things stay the same isn't a lack of knowledge, but a lack of application? And over time, that creates a quiet illusion that you're improving when you're just staying in place. So when you look at all of this together, it doesn't really look like a lack of intelligence. It looks like patterns, quiet, familiar, easy to overlook.
the kind that feel normal until you start noticing them. What if being smart isn't about knowing more, but about catching these patterns in real time? If any of this felt a little too familiar, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And feel free to leave a comment with the one sign that stood out to you. Thanks for watching.